All right, so today we're going to dive deep into Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha.
Yeah.
And we've got a pretty cool collection of stuff to work with here.
Oh, yeah.
We've got excerpts straight from the novel itself.
Right.
We're going to take a look at Hesse's life through a biographical note.
Always good to know a bit about the author.
Yeah. And we'll be checking out Tom Robbins' introduction, which is,
Yeah.
I think, a really interesting perspective.
I like Tom Robbins.
Yeah. And then also kind of digging into the nuances of Susan Bernowski's translator's preface.
Translators are the unsung heroes.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Right.
So our mission, I guess, is to unpack the core of Siddhartha's journey.
Yeah.
And it's not just the story.
Right.
You know, it's a pretty profound exploration of self-discovery
Exactly.
that goes beyond, kind of traditional teachings. And I think that's really where it gets interesting.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
Going off the beaten path.
And we want to understand, not just what happens to Siddhartha, but the deeper currents, influencing him and the insights that we get from his journey.
Absolutely. And the sources that we have, I mean, they paint a really vivid picture, not just of the narrative, but of the man himself. Hess, like we'll see how Hess's own experiences, his engagement with German mysticism, the profound impact of Asian philosophies, even his exploration with mescaline, as Robbins mentions, all weave into the fabric of Siddhartha.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how much of himself he kind of poured into this book.
It's an autobiography, in a way.
It really is.
Yeah, and we also get a sense of how this novel has resonated with different generations. Like it initially struck a chord with younger readers.
Yeah.
But then it later became almost a handbook for the American counterculture, so.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's been kind of embraced by...
different groups.
Yeah, different groups throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And, it's quite telling that the Saturday Review recognized Hesse early on as a novelist of ideas and a moralist of a high order.
Yeah.
The biographical note reinforces this, pointing out Hesse's own feeling that his works were in essence a form of autobiography,
Yeah, I mean, that...
Yeah, so that personal investment really intensifies, I think, the reader's experience with Siddhartha's search.
It does. And Tom Robbins, offers a compelling perspective.
Yeah.
Really positioning Hesse as this rare Western author.
Yeah.
Who wasn't afraid to dive into the deep psychological and spiritual waters.
Mm-hmm.
And do it in a way that was engaging and I think even playful at times.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider how some writers,
You
are...
get bogged down.
Yeah, they're very heavy.
Overly serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case here.
He manages to have fun with it.
Yeah.
He does.
It's kind of refreshing.
It is, it's fascinating how Robbins contrasts Hesse with Dostoevsky, suggesting Hesse took those overheated lemons of existential angst, and turned them into something more like a cool and refreshing lemonade.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it really is.
He highlights Hesse's talent for exploring those profound depths without overwhelming the reader with dense internal monologues.
Yeah, it's not a slog to get through.
No,
it's not.
It's interesting, and you can kind of get through it, and it's kind of like
you want to keep reading.
It's a page turner in a way.
It is a page turner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's meet our protagonist here.
Okay.
We find Siddhartha.
Yeah.
As this bright and respected son of a Brahmin.
Born with a silver spoon, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
Privileged.
Very much so. Yeah. And he's deeply versed in the rituals and the scriptures.
Top of his class.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's this persistent feeling.
He's missing something.
Yeah. Of unease.
This inner thirst that his current life just isn't, taken care of.
Not quenching that thirst.
Yeah. He's clearly searching for something more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And right from the outset.
Yeah.
We see this inherent questioning within Siddhartha regarding the Brahminical practices that he has so thoroughly mastered. Someone raised in this tradition, the concept of Atman is central, the individual soul being one with the ultimate reality of Brahman.
Right.
And Siddhartha's early discontent stems from this feeling that despite his intellectual understanding of this, he hasn't directly experienced this unity.
Yeah.
And this is what sets the stage for his entire journey.
Yeah.
This move from intellectual comprehension to personal realization.
Right.
He senses that these traditional paths, while respected, are ultimately, there's a searching detour confusion for him.
Yeah, there's this great image of this inner conflict.
Yeah.
When he's meditating with his friend Govinda.
Under the banyan tree.
Right, under the banyan tree.
Yeah.
And they're deeply engaged in pursuing samadhi, this state of profound concentration.
Yeah.
But even in these moments,
He's not satisfied.
right, he feels like he hasn't truly reached that heavenly world.
He's not there yet.
Right, the ultimate satiation that he's longing for.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that scene under the banyan tree, I mean, it's so pivotal,
It is.
because even within the deepest meditative practices, Siddhartha is experiencing this fundamental dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
He's pushing against the boundaries of traditional methods, and he's finding them insufficient
Yeah.
for his very personal quest.
Like he's hitting a wall.
He's hitting a wall.
Yeah, and he's like, this isn't
working for me.
Yeah, it's not leading me where I want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this leads to a pretty significant decision.
What's that?
He decides to leave his father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Big decision.
It is. He steps away from the established and comfortable Brahmin life, and he embraces the path of a samana, a wandering ascetic.
A simpler life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's looking for an entirely different route, one based on self-denial and detachment.
The opposite of what he's known.
Right. And he's hoping this will lead him to enlightenment.
Yeah. It's a radical break
Yeah.
with his past, rejecting the comforts, the expectations,
Yeah.
societal roles that he was born into, all for this, austere and intensely self-directed spiritual pursuit.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold move.
It is.
Yeah.
And his father's reluctant blessing
Yeah.
is such a poignant moment. It's a mix of sorrow and respect for Siddhartha's conviction.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotion there. But it really underscores how determined Siddhartha is to do this.
Yeah, he's going for it.
Yeah, he is. Now, the time living with the samanas is portrayed as incredibly intense.
Oh, yeah.
They engage in, severe practices of self-denial.
Pushing themselves to the limit.
Yeah. And they're trying to eradicate the ego.
Yeah.
The excerpts describe these almost mystical experiences that Siddhartha undergoes.
Yeah.
The feeling of entering different forms.
Right.
Like a heron or a jackal.
Like shape-shifting almost.
Yeah. And experiencing the cyclical nature of existence firsthand.
That's trippy.
It's pretty trippy.
You know what's really fascinating about his period with the samanas is, this deep immersion into the idea of transcending the individual self.
Right.
But even within these extreme practices,
Yeah.
Siddhartha encounters a fundamental limitation.
Yeah, he's still not.
He's not there.
Yeah.
He experiences what's described as the bleak euphoria of the cyclical journey.
Right.
But he ultimately realizes that this doesn't provide the permanent liberation he seeks.
Right. It's like just exchanging one set of constraints for another.
That's it.
Yeah. And he's still trapped in that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the key insight here is that even this transcendence of the ego through rigorous discipline doesn't guarantee that lasting fulfillment that he's looking for.
Right, because you see this pattern repeated.
Yeah.
External methods, however extreme, ultimately fall short.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see a contrast here with his friend Govinda,
Right.
who chooses to follow Gautama Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And Govinda finds a sense of clarity and a defined path within Gautama's doctrine.
He's found his thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But Siddhartha,
still searching.
right,
Yeah.
while respecting the Buddha, feels like Gautama's teachings, however profound and insightful, don't offer him a unique and personal route to enlightenment.
This is a critical divergence in their journeys.
It is.
Govinda seeks enlightenment through adherence to a structured teaching, finding solace and guidance in a defined system.
Yeah.
But Siddhartha, on the other hand,
Yeah.
feels instinctively that such a structured approach won't work for him.
Right.
He acknowledges the clarity and coherence of Gautama's doctrine,
Right.
particularly the concept of cause and effect. But he firmly believes that his own path to understanding lies elsewhere, rooted in his own direct experiences.
Got to be his own path.
His own path, exactly.
Yeah, and this leads to a really interesting encounter.
What's that?
Siddhartha has this respectful but kind of critical dialogue with Kama himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Head to head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He expresses admiration for the clarity of the Buddha's doctrine of cause and effect.
Right.
This understanding of how actions lead to consequences. But he raises a fundamental question about the idea of finding salvation through a teaching, through someone else's experience.
Yeah. That's a good question.
It is.
That conversation really highlights Siddhartha's fiercely independent spirit. You know, he recognizes the immense power and logical consistency of Gautama's teachings.
Yeah.
But he also keenly feels that true transformative understanding cannot be simply transmitted or adopted wholesale.
Right.
It needs to be discovered and validated through one's own lived experience. And Gautama's wise and compassionate response, essentially wishing Siddhartha well on his unique path, is quite remarkable.
It is.
Showing a deep understanding of the individual nature of spiritual seeking.
It's not like he's mad at him.
Yeah.
He's like, I get it.
Go your own way.
Right.
Yeah.
And then comes this pivotal moment.
Okay.
You know, right after he parts ways with Gautama, his awakening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's described as this profound shift in perception, this feeling of seeing the world with completely new eyes.
He can see clearly now.
Right.
Yeah.
He suddenly recognizes this inherent beauty
Yeah.
and deep interconnectedness of everything around him, even the seemingly mundane.
Right.
Yeah. And in this newfound clarity, he makes a crucial decision to be his own teacher.
He's taking control.
Yeah.
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 This awakening is a true turning point in Siddhartha's journey.
It is.
You know, it marks a liberation from this intellectual pursuit of truth and a profound embrace of direct sensory experience.
He's not just thinking about it, he's feeling it.
Feeling it, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, he consciously rejects the doctrines and external authorities that he had previously sought guidance from. And he commits to this path of self-study, learning through observing the world, and most importantly, his own reactions and responses to it.
Right.
It's a move towards embodied knowledge rather than just intellectual assent.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is this complete shift in perspective. It's like someone flipped the switch and revealed a reality he was previously blind to.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the scales have fallen from his eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, you know, this newfound independence and reliance on his own inner guidance comes with a significant cost.
Oh, yeah.
He experiences intense loneliness and a sense of profound detachment. You know, and he realizes that he no longer belongs to any of those established groups or belief systems that he once sought refuge and understanding within.
Yeah, this loneliness is almost an inevitable consequence of his radical individualism, you know?
Right.
By consciously rejecting these prescribed paths and external authorities, he naturally finds himself outside the familiar structures of society and spiritual communities. It's a moment that carries both immense liberation and a sense of profound isolation.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah, he's standing on his own 2 feet.
Right.
For the first time without a map or a companion.
Yeah, he's on his own.
He is.
Yeah. And from this point, his life takes a dramatic turn.
Okay.
He transitions into a completely different realm, the world of what he calls the child people.
The child people.
Right, those who are absorbed in the everyday concerns and pleasures of the material world.
Right, just living their lives.
Right, not really thinking about the bigger questions.
They're not too deep.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is where he encounters Kamala.
Kamala.
Yeah, the accomplished courtesan.
Right.
Who becomes his teacher in the art of love and the ways of the sensual world.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This marks a really significant and deliberate shift in Siddhartha's exploration.
It does.
You know, he moves from the ascetic life of self-denial to one immersed in sensory experience.
He's going all in.
He's going all in.
Yeah.
Kamala embodies this earthly realm.
Right.
And Siddhartha's relationship with her is his initiation into, you know, the complexities of human connection, desire, and the full spectrum of earthly pleasures.
Yeah, he's really experiencing a whole new side.
He's living it up.
Yeah, of life.
Yeah.
And his engagement with Kamala isn't superficial.
No.
You know?
He's taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actively chooses to learn from her, to understand this, you know, vital aspect of human experience, the art of lovemaking.
The art of lovemaking.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And this leads him into the world of the wealthy merchant Kamaswami.
Right.
Where he immerses himself in the ways of business and material success.
He's a natural.
Yeah. He's good at it.
Yeah. But what's so crucial to understand here is Siddhartha's fundamentally detached approach to these worldly pursuits.
Yeah.
He observes and learns, treating these interactions almost like a game.
Right.
You know, he masters the rules of love and business, achieving a degree of success. But he never fully invests his heart or his true self in these endeavors. He remains, in a sense, an observer.
Yeah, he's not fully...
He's not all in.
Yeah, committing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And despite this outward success.
Yeah.
And his ability to navigate the complexities of this new world,
Yeah.
that persistent inner voice.
Yeah, that nagging voice.
That quiet questioning keeps hinting at a fundamental emptiness within this life.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's this sense that something essential is still missing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That this accumulation of wealth and sensual pleasure isn't providing that ultimate fulfillment that he's seeking.
Right. It's not the answer. And that inner voice acts as a constant, subtle reminder of his deeper spiritual quest.
Right.
Even as he becomes skilled in the art of worldly living and amasses possessions and experiences.
Yeah.
Siddhartha feels a fundamental disconnect between his external success and his internal yearning.
It's not fulfilling him.
The pleasures and possessions don't ultimately satisfy that deep spiritual hunger.
Right.
It's like trying to quench a profound thirst with something that offers only temporary superficial satisfaction.
Just drinking salt water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to work.
Yeah, and eventually this underlying dissatisfaction erupts into profound disillusionment.
Yeah.
He feels deeply entangled in samsara, the cycle of suffering, of birth, death, and rebirth, driven by attachment and desire.
He sees the cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the excerpts describe this feeling of nausea.
Yeah.
This intense longing for release, even yearning for death as an escape from this cycle of unfulfilling pursuits.
It's a dark place.
Yeah, this period of disillusionment represents a true dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
For Siddhartha, he's experiencing the full weight of his entanglement in the material world.
Yeah.
And he feels this profound sense of alienation, not only from his earlier spiritual aspirations,
Right.
but from himself.
Yeah. He's lost.
He sees the emptiness beneath the surface of his worldly success.
Mm-hmm.
And feels trapped in a life that no longer holds meaning for him.
It's all meaningless.
Meaningless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it culminates in his return to the river.
Right back to where it all began.
Yeah, the same river from his youth that he crossed when he left his Brahmin home.
Full circle.
Yeah, and he's contemplating suicide.
Oh, wow.
Completely consumed by despair and self-loathing.
He's at rock bottom.
It's rock bottom, yeah.
Standing at that familiar riverbank contemplating complete annihilation, Siddhartha reaches the absolute lowest point of his despair.
Yeah.
His previous attempts to escape suffering first through extreme asceticism.
Right.
And then through immersion in worldly pleasures have both led him to this profound sense of failure and emptiness. He feels utterly lost and without direction.
Like he's tried it all.
He's tried everything.
Yeah.
Nothing's worked.
Nothing's worked.
Yeah.
And then in that moment of utter despair and self-abandonment, he hears the sound, Om.
Oh.
And it's a pivotal, transformative moment, triggering a profound inner awakening and this sudden recognition of the utter foolishness of his desire for self-destruction.
He snacks out of it.
Yeah, it's like a lifeline.
Yeah.
It's thrown to him in his darkest hour.
The sound of Om is deeply symbolic, representing this fundamental unity and interconnectedness of all existence. It breaks through the noise of Siddhartha's despair and reconnects him to a deeper sense of self and his place within the larger cosmic order.
Yeah.
It's a moment of profound grace and a reminder of a truth that's been dormant within him.
Yeah, he's remembering something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he falls into this deep restorative sleep. And when he awakens, it's with a completely renewed perspective.
A new man.
His past life, with all its striving and suffering, feels distant.
It's gone.
Almost indifferent.
Yeah.
Like a forgotten former existence.
It's like it never happened.
He's reborn in a way.
Yeah.
Shedding the weight of his previous mistakes and attachments.
That deep sleep symbolizes a complete break
Yeah.
with his immediate past.
Right.
A shedding of the old self.
Yeah.
Burdened by disillusionment.
Right.
He awakens with a clean slate, free from the overwhelming negativity that consumed him, and with a fresh, uncluttered understanding of himself and the world around him.
Yeah, it's a total reset.
It's a reset, mental and emotional.
Yeah. And in this newly awakened state, he encounters Govinda once more.
His old friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is now a devoted follower of the Buddha.
He found his path.
Right.
Yeah.
And Siddhartha recognizes him instantly.
Yeah.
Despite the many years that have passed.
Mm-hmm.
But Govinda is completely surprised and doesn't recognize Siddhartha at first.
He doesn't even know him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This unexpected reunion highlights the vastly different paths their lives have taken.
Yeah, they've gone in totally opposite directions.
Yeah, Govinda has found solace structure and a sense of purpose within the Buddhist teachings, while Siddhartha has undergone this more internal, experiential, and ultimately solitary transformation.
Yeah.
And Govinda's inability to recognize his old friend underscores the depth of Siddhartha's inner change.
He's like a totally different person.
Different person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Siddhartha reflects on his past mastery of fasting, waiting, and thinking.
Those disciplines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those core disciplines that he once prided himself on during his time as a samana. And he now feels that he has, in a way, squandered these valuable abilities.
Wasted them.
In his pursuit of worldly pleasures. And he now feels akin to one of the child people that he once looked down upon.
He's come full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, this reflection demonstrates a profound level of self-awareness, you know?
Yeah.
He acknowledges that he lost touch with those fundamental disciplines that once defined his spiritual quest. You know, becoming absorbed in the very material world he had initially sought to transcend.
Yeah, it's ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a humbling realization of how far he strayed from his original intentions.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's also this palpable shift within him.
Yeah.
A newfound lightness, a sense of inner joy.
That's good.
Yeah, he even finds himself laughing at himself and the absurdity of the world.
That's a good sign.
Right.
Yeah.
The intense self-hatred that had plagued him is finally gone.
It's released him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he recognizes the inherent value of following his own inner voice.
Yeah.
Even though it led him through periods of darkness and apparent failure.
His own path.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This laughter is significant, you know?
It signifies a profound level of self-acceptance.
Right.
He no longer judges himself harshly for the detours
Right.
and perceived mistakes of his journey.
Yeah, he's letting go.
He recognizes the necessity of all those experiences, both the highs and the lows,
Yeah.
and leading him to this present moment of clarity and peace.
It's all part of the journey.
It's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's an acceptance of his own imperfect path.
Right.
Yeah.
And this transformation leads him to a decisive action.
What's that?
He chooses to stay by the river,
Okay.
the very place where he experienced his awakening.
He's drawn back to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he seeks out the ferryman, hoping to begin a completely new chapter in his life.
A new beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One guided by this wisdom he's now begun to uncover within himself.
The river now becomes a central and potent symbol
It does.
in the second part of the novel, you know,
Yeah.
representing this constant flow of life, the interconnectedness of all things, and the eternal presence that underlies all change.
It's a powerful symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Siddhartha seeking out the ferryman signifies his willingness to learn from this new source of wisdom,
Right.
to immerse himself in the rhythm and lessons of the river.
Yeah, he's ready to learn.
He's ready.
Yeah. And he meets Vasudeva,
Okay.
the ferryman, and he immediately feels this deep, almost spiritual connection to the flowing river.
It calls to him.
Right. Yeah. And he recognizes in its constant movement and yet eternal presence.
Yeah.
You know, this powerful metaphor for the nature of existence itself.
Always changing, yet always the same.
Always changing, yet always the same. Yeah.
Yeah. His encounter with Vasudeva is truly transformative. You know,
Yeah.
the ferryman embodies this deep, intuitive understanding of life,
Right.
you know, mirroring the wisdom of the river itself.
Yeah.
Siddhartha instinctively senses this profound wisdom and is drawn to learn from him,
He's a good teacher.
recognizing him as a guide in this new phase of his journey.
Yeah. This is a big turning point.
Yeah. Yeah, and Siddhartha becomes Vasudeva's helper.
Right.
And it's in this simple role, working by the river,
Yeah.
that he begins to learn a different kind of listening.
Yeah.
A deep receptive listening that goes far beyond, you know, the intellectual engagement of his Brahmin days or the strategic listening of his time as a merchant.
It's a different kind of listening.
A deeper listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a crucial aspect of
Yeah.
his ongoing development.
Yeah.
You know, Vasudeva possesses this extraordinary ability to listen without judgment,
Right.
creating a safe,
Yeah.
profound space for Siddhartha to reflect on his entire life story.
Yeah. He could be totally open and honest.
Yeah. Including his periods of despair and his powerful awakening by the river.
Yeah.
And it's through this deep, empathetic listening that Siddhartha begins to truly understand the interconnectedness of his own journey and the wisdom inherent in all his experiences.
Yeah.
You know,
It's all connected.
it's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Vasudeva listens patiently as Siddhartha recounts his entire life,
Yeah.
holding nothing back,
Yeah.
including his deepest despair and that transformative moment of hearing, Om.
You know.
And Vasudeva's response is
Yeah.
so insightful.
What does he say?
He recognizes that it was the river itself
The river.
that spoke to Siddhartha,
Yeah.
offering him solace and a new beginning.
The river's the teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
And he offers Siddhartha companionship and invites him to stay and learn the ways of the river.
Become one with the river.
Right, yeah.
Vasudeva's acceptance of Siddhartha is unconditional.
It is.
He recognizes the profound significance of Siddhartha's experiences without judgment
right.
or analysis.
Yeah. Expert speaker.